faith, family, and everything else that matters to you from a godly point of view. Welcome to the Clearbranch Methodist Podcast.
Hey, welcome in. It is episode number 3 of the Clearbranch Methodist Podcast. My name is Mark Harvard. I'm the pastor of communications and online campus for Clearbranch Methodist Church in Trussville, Alabama. And, go find us over on social media. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I'm pretty sure there might be an old MySpace account out there somewhere. Friendster, if you remember that. But just go find us, like us, share us. And also, if you get something out of this podcast, let us know. I'd love to hear about maybe some things you like, things, maybe some requests for future topics for the podcast. Send me an email, mharvard, mharvard, at clearbranch.org, mharvard at clearbranch.org. Now, this week, we are joined by a new face around our offices here today, Michael Edmonson. Now, Michael is our new, week number 2, right?
Yep.
Week number 2, minister to students here at Clearbranch. Michael, how is it coming in? Yeah, how has week 2 been so far?
Week 2 comparatively has been great.
Compared to week 1?
I've gotten a little bit more ahead of the ball as far as week 2 goes. Week 1 was chaos, but it was good chaos, but it was just a lot of information and planning and all just stacked on top of each other.
There's so many names to remember.
There are so many names to remember and so many schools to remember, which student goes where, age, everything, whose sibling is who, and so on. But it's been great.
Yeah, and the fact that, there are a lot of churches out there that really cater to only one school at a time. But Clearbranch it's kind of in the same boat that I tell people my house is in. My house is in this weird jurisdictional triangle between like Odenville and Argo and Springville and Trussville. Clearbranch is in the same boat there. So we've got not just multiple schools, but multiple school systems that you've got to worry about who's got an e-learning day this day and who's out for that holiday and who's playing whom in football. And so I'm not going to say better you than me, but sarcastically, good luck.
Yeah.
Now, Michael, where do you come to us from?
So I'm from just about the exact opposite side of Birmingham from where we're at. I'm from Hueytown, Alabama. So it's over on the western side. And I've lived there, grew up there, went to school there, and until college, and then after college and all, I ended up moving back. So that's currently where I'm still at as well at the moment.
Now, as far as youth ministry goes, what kind of background do you have?
So with my life, I grew up going to church with my parents. That was what we did every week. And I got heavily involved in just youth ministry myself when I was in high school. And going from that into college, I had never really thought about it, but then about my sophomore year or so of college, junior year, a friend of mine called me up and asked if I had any interest in at least helping out in youth ministry, and invited me to go to lunch this one day. And then we got there and he was like, "Oh, by the way, I invited my boss, he was an intern for the youth program at Auburn United Methodist Church." And he's just like, "Well, I invited my boss to come with us." And I was like, "Okay, that's cool."
Yeah.
And they get there and immediately start grilling me with all of these questions. And I was like, "Okay, yeah." And but through this, getting linked up with my old boss, Mark Ball, he offered me to come on as an intern with the Auburn youth ministry there. And from there, I loved it immediately. Was instantly in love with working with students. Anytime you can find a job that doesn't really feel like a job, I feel like that you're where you're supposed to be.
Sure.
And that's how it's always felt to me. I mean, obviously there are the stressful parts of planning and all, but I've been on board and loved it for, I did that for 5 years. Actually, I was 3 years as an intern and 2 years as the assistant. And that's kind of where my background sits, is within, I guess, those 5 years. But even outside of that, I've helped with many DNOWs and winter retreat weekends and whatever other kind of retreat weekends you want to think of, and all sorts of youth ministries all over, usually about the mid-Alabama kind of area, but yeah.
Now, Michael, normally I would prep you for a question like this, but it just popped in my head. Well, you're going down this list of all these things that you've done, and anybody that's spent some time in youth ministry, I have, Jeremy has, anyone who spent any time at all in youth ministry has that one story of, oh man, I messed up bad. whether it's I ended up with only having 2 chaperones for a lock-in with 90 kids, or so what is there to have? What's the big I messed up story for you?
Well, one, I would not necessarily call this my big one, but some of the previous people I've worked with might say, or they laugh about it and bring it up all the time, was we had a event where the students would come and spend the night at the church, and at night we had all these other sorts of like things that we had going on at the like tournaments and different things.
Like a lot,
Oh yeah. And I was sent on the task of picking up ice cream, and for whatever reason in my head, I did not take into account, hey, we have a ton of kids. Well, actually, in my head, I was thinking this was solely for like the seniors kind of thing.
So you're just going to get ice cream for your friends?
No, well. So I think I came back with
freshman.
2 tubs of ice cream, and now we have, for 7th through 12th grade, we had, I think, 160 students there.
So you had 2 tubs of ice cream.
Yeah.
So pick your favorites.
And yeah, pretty much, I guess. No, I ended up having to make another trip from that. But no, that one wasn't as much of an embarrassment for me. They like to give me grief of it, but that was what it was. But no, there was one I was leading. If you've ever heard the song Year 3000 by the Jonas Brothers.
Okay. I'm aware of their existence.
Yeah, we did one of the nights of this. It was probably not the same year, but the same retreat. We did. We would do kind of secular music at the beginning of the platform hour, just to kind of get the students up, moving around, dancing, singing along. And so I was doing this song up on stage, and we had this intern that had been running the lyrics and all, and I told him what all to pull up and everything like that, and he pulled up lyrics and plugged it into ProPresenter. And if you don't know this, the Jonas Brothers did not write that song. They bought the rights of it and changed some of the lyrics. And he didn't know that, and so we had the original lyrics. And these original lyrics in the second verse, I think second verse says something about girls there with round hair like Star Wars float above the floor. Well, all of a sudden across our big screen comes something about
something else.
Yeah, it was
that we don't want.
No, probably don't want to share it. And I just froze and I stopped playing. And I think I was like, no, that's not right. And backed away from the mic. Yeah.
So, well, luckily we have, here at Clearbranch, we have a number of safeguards. Yes. One big one named Addie.
Yes, 100%.
That stop us from any of that from happening.
Yeah.
But it's always fun to hear those especially from new youth ministry folks.
Oh yeah.
From those stories that you can look back now all these years later and laugh at.
Yes.
Because, this turned out and you're like, oh man, I would never do that now. But back then, it was a great idea.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, we all have. So when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about student ministries and some of the issues that our young people are fighting these days, and I say fighting, that they're dealing with these days. Whether it be social, whether it be, religious, whether it be just, growing up type stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about that because you've got some a very unique insight as far as not being the parent, but also being someone that our kids confide in, and you see a lot of this on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about that. It's the Clearbranch Methodist Podcast. Stick around.
It's that time again. Time for our annual trunk or treat at Clearbranch. Bring the whole family and spend the evening of October 25th with us as we share fun, music, snacks, and of course, candy. This event is open to the entire community. So grab your costume and your friends and be at Clearbranch Methodist from 5:30 to 8 p.m. on October 25th for this year's trunk or treat.
Welcome back to the Clearbranch Methodist Podcast.
And we are back. It is the Clearbranch Methodist Podcast. My name is Mark Harvard. I'm the pastor of communications and online campus for Clearbranch Methodist Church in Trussville, Alabama. And we're here with Michael Edmonson. He is our minister to students. And Michael, once again, I mentioned earlier that a few of us on staff have experience with student ministries, and it's a very fun position. There's a lot of fun to be had. There's also some serious stuff to be had as well. A lot of those conversations that sometimes kids maybe don't feel open or comfortable going to parents with. You end up fielding a lot of those conversations, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So what if I'm a parent, luckily my little boy is 6, so I've got a little bit. But I would hope that he would have someone he felt safe going to, like a youth person at the church that he can go to if he doesn't feel like if he doesn't feel like he can bring something to me or to my wife. What are some of those issues that you see our young people facing a lot?
Yeah, so there are so many that there really are that they deal with and most of the time that they don't want to admit, as you said, especially to parents. And I think that comes with being more embarrassed about it, or maybe even being like having shame for maybe something they did or how they feel about something that they don't want to admit to their parents. But I feel like the biggest thing that I've noticed that our students or just students in general deal with is stress. And I don't think we can really talk about that enough, just for the fact of, especially with these students, and now since COVID and with social media exploding the way that it has, and just everything online wise, that stress has always been a thing, but it's adapted and molded into this new thing now where it's not just the stress of all this change that they're going throughout their lives, but they're also stressing about being able to see every little thing that maybe their friends are doing without them on social media, or all sorts of the other avenues as far as that goes. Like, they're seeing everything that's going on, and whether they can be taking a part of it or not. But it's almost a way of passive cyberbullying in a way. So not like directly cyberbullying, but like them seeing that, again, that their friends are hanging out and doing this, and maybe they didn't get an invite.
It's almost like abusive FOMO there.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah. And of course, anxious kids produce anxious adults.
Very much.
And it's that's an ongoing thing that you wish you could say, oh, this will pass.
Mm-hmm.
It will not pass.
It will not pass.
Yes, adults. We had a sermon series a couple of years ago here at Clearbranch called "The Monster Under the Bed," and it was about stress and anxiety.
Yep.
It's something that continues to go through life. So when you're talking to a kid about that, how do you deal with something like that?
First off, I think the most important thing is to let them know that they are loved and they are heard. And I use the word heard to not mean that you're listening to them, but you're actually hearing what they're saying and understanding. I think that's a big thing for nowadays, that even our students still can gauge more than anything, is whether you're completely present with them or whether you're just listening to them talk. And I think that plays a huge role in the intentionality and just allowing them to feel more open and willing to speak to anyone about what they're going through.
Do you find that sometimes when you get to these conversations, the kids are looking more for someone to listen than they are for advice?
Yes. I think it depends on the student. Everyone has different personalities and everyone has different ways of communicating and different ways they want to be communicated to. And so I think understanding that particular student, understanding that, gauging if they do want advice, because some do just want to be heard, and then some kind of want to be, it's more than just want to be heard, but want to be felt like that they are understood. But then there are the students that would like advice. But students too are also often very bold to, if they get to that point that they're talking to you about it, they're going to ask you for advice if they want it.
And that's another thing, is they have to get to that point where they're willing to reach out for it. A lot of kids will walk around all day long with it, and you see it all over their face.
Yeah.
But they either, like you said, they're either ashamed of it, mm-hmm. or they feel like no one is going to listen. And once again, it's something that gets echoed in so many adults, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's hard to see a student that you can see openly is struggling, that doesn't want to find a way to let that out or find someone to let that out to, which I think that's for me has been, I'm not gonna say my biggest struggle, but my biggest challenge is figuring out a way to to close that gap and allow them to feel comfortable enough to come to me, or even to anyone else for that matter. If I know someone that I feel like could help them more than I would be able to, and send them in that direction. I think that's been the biggest challenge, of figuring out how to make them feel comfortable enough at that point.
So outside of anxiety and outside of just overall stress, what are just a few other things that you see a lot of our young people struggling with?
Yeah, so I think, a lot of them are, obviously scatterbrained. They have so many things going on. But I think some of it is, as they get older, is decision-making on their own. Mm-hmm. They have spent their entire lives being parented by their parents, which is a good thing. That's not a bad thing at all. But then they get to the point of their upper years of high school that they're about to take this step, whether it be college or into the real world, that they have to make decisions for themselves, and making those decisions for themselves and not having someone speak into their ear and then let it flow back out as if it were their decision. I've kind of seen that a lot with, obviously, the senior high students having to figure that out for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's always that advice that I quote my parents a lot, as far as good advice that they've given me over the years. And one thing that my mom used to always tell me whenever I'd go out for the evening was, it wasn't be home by such and such time or whatever, but it was always make good decisions.
Oh yeah.
And I think that carries over, not just into, don't make a decision that's going to make me have to bail you out of jail or something like that, but, think things through. And I think through that process, she was actually teaching me how to make good decisions throughout, adulthood.
Yeah.
Some of which I have failed horribly in doing, but, there's always that intention there. And, it's always, raise up your kids so that they can make decisions, the decisions that you would want them to make when you're not around.
Yes.
Also make those decisions.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you could say one thing, just as someone who is around these kids all the time and who gets to, be a part of their, spiritual upbringing, that, if you could say one thing to just a generic faceless group of parents out there, what would that be?
That would be to just be present. I know us, well, I say us, I'm not a parent yet or anything, but I know parents all over the place out there that with them, especially if they have multiple kids, are having their own life stuff going on, having their kids' life stuff going on, being pulled in all these different directions and working all. and your cell phones for sure, and just social media and all of the stuff that we've been dealing with, especially that's ramped up since COVID. I think finding a way to be present outside of our electronics and outside of our cell phones and actually spend time with your kids as a family and actually mentally be present in what you're doing rather than having your head all wrapped up in what's next and where you got to go next and who's got to go where and all of this.
Sometimes the best thing you can do is just be.
Yeah, 100%.
So we've got a lot of great stuff coming up with student ministries and our adults, and of course here I am making a plug for electronic and social media stuff. You can get all kinds of updates on what's going on in student ministries over on the Clearbranch Students Facebook page, Instagram, all kinds of stuff. There's a newsletter that goes out every week that you can sign up for. Just reach out to you or to Addie here at the church, right?
Yeah, for sure. You can, and if you even have questions or comments or anything,
maybe want to volunteer.
Yeah, or want to volunteer. Yeah, 100%. You could also just shoot me an email at same as Mark's, but Edmonson. That's MEDMONSON at clearbranch.org. I would love to hear your questions and get back to you.
Excellent. Michael Edmonson, minister to students here at Clearbranch Methodist. And thanks for joining us here this week on the Clearbranch Methodist Podcast.